a small bundle, wrapped in green leaves, tied with plant fiber. Inside it, a thick, sour, almost cheesy paste with a smell so strong it stops conversations. Around 800 AD, a Polynesian master navigator set this bundle on the deck of a double-hulled wooden canoe and pushed off from his home island. He would sail for weeks across open ocean, out of sight of land, with no compass, no map, no metal, no grain. The bundle of sour paste went with him. It was lighter than fresh food. It was older than anyone on the canoe. It had already been fermenting in a pit in the ground for over 5 years before he packed it. That paste fed the men who quietly accomplished what historians now consider one of the greatest navigational achievements in human history, the Polynesian conquest of the Pacific Ocean. This is the story of Ma, the fermented breadfruit paste that crossed thousands of miles of open sea and built island civilizations across a third of the planet. The numbers behind Polynesian voyaging are almost impossible to absorb. Between roughly 1500 BC and 1300 AD, Austronesian-speaking peoples crossed and settled an area of ocean greater than the entire landmass of Africa, Eurasia, and the Americas combined. From Taiwan, they spread south to the Philippines, east through Micronesia, then leaped south into Melanesia, and finally exploded across the open Pacific. They reached Samoa and Tonga around 1000 BC, the Marquesas around 200 BC, Hawaii sometime between 400 and 800 AD, Easter Island around 1200 AD, New Zealand around 1300 AD. In one of the most famous documented crossings, the Hawaiian voyaging canoe Hokulea sailed in 1976 from Hawaii to Tahiti, a distance of over 2,000 miles using only traditional navigation, no instruments, no engines, no charts. They proved that the original Polynesian voyagers had the skill and the technology to do exactly what historians said they did. But skill and ships were only half the story. The other half was the food. A canoe carrying 20 or 30 people across 2,000 miles of empty ocean needed weeks of food, sometimes months. Fresh fish could be caught from the canoe, but Pacific routes from places like Tahiti to Hawaii passed through long stretches of nutrient-poor ocean where catches were unreliable. Fresh fruit rotted within days. Drinking coconuts were heavy and ran out. The voyagers needed something dense, light, calorie-rich, and almost impossible to spoil. They needed a food that could sit in the bottom of a damp canoe for 2 months in tropical heat without becoming poison. The answer they perfected across thousands of years of Pacific voyaging was pit-fermented breadfruit. Breadfruit, called ulu in Hawaiian, is a starchy green fruit the size of a small football. A single mature breadfruit tree can produce up to 200 fruits a season. The problem is that all of them ripen at roughly the same time. Eat what you can in 2 weeks, and the rest rots on the ground. So Pacific Islanders developed a brilliant preservation system. They dug a pit. They lined it with banana leaves, tea leaves, or breadfruit leaves. They peeled and washed the ripe breadfruit, then packed it into the pit in tight layers. They covered it with more leaves, then with weighted stones, and then they walked away. Inside the pit, the breadfruit fermented. Wild lactic acid bacteria, naturally present on the leaves and the fruit, multiplied in the warm, oxygen-poor environment. The starches in the fruit broke down, the pH dropped, the flesh turned from white and starchy to a soft, sticky, brown-gray paste with a sharp, sour, cheesy flavor. After several weeks, the paste was edible. After several months, it was preserved. According to the Wikipedia article on breadfruit and multiple Pacific study sources, the product, called ma in the Carolines, masi in Samoa and Tonga, and mahi in Tahiti, would routinely last a year or more in the pit without spoiling. And the truly extraordinary part is that some pits have been recorded as producing edible fermented breadfruit more than 20 years after burial. 2 decades of food storage with no electricity, no salt, no smoke, and no cans. The famous ethnobotanist E.S.C. Handy, working in the Marquesas in the early 20th century, reported personally seeing fermented breadfruit paste that was 100 years old, still being eaten by the islanders. The preferred aging time for Marquesan ma was 10 years. 10 years! The paste in a Polynesian pantry might have been older than some of the children eating it. When a voyaging canoe was preparing for a long journey, navigators would dig into the family pit and remove aged ma in chunks. The paste would be wrapped tightly in leaves and tied with sennet, a cord made from coconut fiber. The bundles were dense, lightweight, and almost completely sealed. They could be stuffed into baskets and stored in the bottom of the canoe. Salt spray, humidity, and tropical heat had little effect on a paste that had already been fermenting in a pit for years. On board, the navigator would unwrap a small portion at a time. The paste could be eaten as it was, sour, dense, or mixed with fresh water and coconut cream into a kind of porridge. A handful was enough to fuel a paddler through a long shift on the steering paddle. There's a beautiful piece of documented modern history connecting this tradition directly to a recent navigator. The master navigator Mau Piailug from the Caroline Islands of Micronesia was the man who taught traditional Polynesian wayfinding to a new generation of Hawaiians and crews, the legendary Hokulea voyages. On one journey, Mau didn't eat the crew's modern provisions. Instead, he ate something his daughter had wrapped tightly in leaves and given to him before the canoe sailed. According to a Polynesian Cultural Center conference attendee quoted at a 2018 Breadfruit Summit, when Mau offered some to a fellow crew member, it turned out to be a pungent fermented breadfruit mix, the same food in the same form that had crossed the Pacific Ocean 1,000 years before, still being eaten by the master of the ancient art. Modern food scientists who have studied fermented breadfruit are slowly catching up to what Pacific Islanders figured out 3,000 years ago. The fermentation produces lactic acid bacteria that act as probiotics. It breaks down hard-to-digest starches into more bioavailable forms. It increases the shelf life of the food by enormous factors. It does all of this without any energy input. No fire, no refrigeration, no machinery, just leaves, a pit, and time. And it changed history. Without fermented breadfruit, the colonization of the Pacific would have happened differently, or not at all. The Hawaiian Islands, the Marquesas, Easter Island, and New Zealand might have remained unreached for centuries longer. The food itself was the technology that made open ocean settlement possible. As much as the canoes, as much as the stars, as much as the wave patterns the navigators read from the water itself, the small, sour bundle of ma was the silent partner of one of humanity's greatest migrations. Today, the tradition is fading in Polynesia, but still alive in parts of Micronesia, particularly on Pohnpei and the Marshall Islands, where families still ferment breadfruit in pits the same way their ancestors did. The Polynesian Voyaging Society and the Breadfruit Institute are working to revive the practice, partly to preserve cultural heritage, partly to address food security on small islands threatened by climate change. A food that survived empires and continents may yet outlive even modern industrial agriculture. So, tell me below, if you had to set sail tomorrow across 2,000 miles of open ocean in a wooden canoe, and your only food was a few bundles of 10-year-old fermented breadfruit paste, sour and pungent and wrapped in leaves, would you trust it to keep you alive? Or would you starve at sea trying to find something better? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you want more stories about the ancient foods that quietly built civilizations, subscribe to Alternate Past. The next one is already wrapped and waiting.